A big development tonight in the Iran nuclear talks. It appears Iran's willingness to go along with President Obama's plan to ease sanctions after the still uncompleted nuclear deal was implemented was greatly exaggerated. Leaders in Tehran are saying tonight that if the sanctions are not lifted at the start of the deal, there is no deal. Correspondent Kevin Cork, who's traveling with the president tonight, has the story.
President Obama in Jamaica, eager to hail growing economic cooperation between longtime regional partners, but less than enthusiastic when asked whether the framework of a nuclear arms deal with Iran was already unraveling.
This is not done until it's done, and the next 2 to 3 months of negotiations are going to be absolutely critical.
The president's comments came on the heels of an unflinching declaration by Iran's President Rouhani.
We will not sign any agreement unless all economic sanctions are lifted at once, on the very first day of the implementation of the agreement.
A shot at the White House plan to gradually lift sanctions, and part of an increasingly aggressive tone taken by the Iranians. On Twitter, Rouhani echoed his country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, who called the U.S. dishonest, citing the White House fact sheet as an example of the U.S., quote, lying and breaching promises.
The other party who is stubborn, treacherous, and hard to deal with, and is known to be after trickery, after haggling, after stabbing others in the back.
Criticism of the framework has been growing. In an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal, former Secretaries of State George Shultz and Henry Kissinger warned the White House plan could undermine stability in the region.
I'm very uneasy. And I wrote this article in order to point out that there are issues of verification and there are issues of strategic relationships in the region. And that it will be very difficult, that we must prevent that nuclear weapons spread all over the Middle East.
The State Department's Marie Harf took issue with the article.
I heard a lot of sort of big words and big thoughts in that piece, and those are certainly, there's a place for that, but I didn't hear a lot of alternatives about what they would do differently.
Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, Chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Bob Corker of Tennessee, has pushed legislation to require congressional approval for any nuclear deal with Iran. That drew a stinging rebuke from California's Barbara Boxer, who in a letter to Corker wrote, to force Congress to weigh in now on the Iran nuclear talks before a final deal has been completed would be a reckless rush to judgment. All this on a day where we learned the so-called snapback provision may not even prove workable and that the Iranians may not sign the comprehensive deal if it happens in June. By the way, Rouhani's comments that you saw there in the piece is now renewing calls on Capitol Hill for more sanctions. Senator Mark Kirk of Illinois saying that he'd like to push forward with a bill that would do just that if the so-called comprehensive deal falls apart this summer. Brett?
More on all this with the panel. Kevin Cork traveling with the president in Panama.